Today, we are excited to welcome back Dr. Sarah Goodheart. In our last episode, Dr. Goodheart answered a variety of questions for first-time moms that they often think about before they give birth. In this episode, we'll dive into afterbirth care and what women can expect, and some tips on how to deal with postpartum. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. This is an issue very near and dear to my heart because as you and I were just chatting off camera, it's something I think that we can prepare for all we want, but it's until you're in it. Like you said on your own journey, it's something that you really, it's really intense. Great. So I guess let's just start at the basics of what is postpartum. Like, does it start right after you give birth? Is it a period that you experience in the hospital?
Yes. So postpartum does begin immediately once that baby has exited, whether it's a vaginal delivery or C-section, you are now postpartum. And there's a lot of physical, mental, and emotional changes that will happen right away. Mm-hmm. So after delivery, there's a very large hormone shift. And sometimes people will experience, full body shaking. They'll experience, severe mood swings, so much joy, of course, because now they've welcomed their baby into the world. But it comes with a lot of physical demands, emotional changes. It's a very difficult time to navigate because you have so many changes happening mentally, physically, and emotionally. But you're so happy to be going through them because now you have your baby. You've waited 9 months, maybe more, to have this perfect little baby that you now have. So it can be hard juggling your feelings about it when you're so happy and so excited, but you can also be so tired, so sleep deprived, and so...
The physical. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Any advice, both from your professional perspective and your personal perspective on getting through those first hours and days?
So the first couple hours after delivery, at least, in our hospital, we'll do what we call the golden hour. So the golden hour is right after you deliver. We like to keep babies skin to skin with mom because that not only helps regulate baby's body temperature, their breathing, and helps them transition from life outside, inside mom to outside world, but it also helps mom. And it helps you go through this shift from, having your baby now out of your body and, just having that joy of now having your baby with you. It's such a special bond and experience. So we really try to have that golden hour where, we try not to have visitors at that time. It should really just be mom, her support person, whether that be a partner or a friend or their parent, with them just to enjoy having their new baby and just, really snuggling and enjoying and bonding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh. That just sounds, and I love that you call it the golden hour.
Yeah.
Because it really does sound like truly magical.
It is. It's great.
So once you're out of the hospital, whether that be, and I know as I understand that could be anywhere from a day to a few days, depending on maybe what a mom goes through in pregnancy. So what does that look like, that you, if I were one of your patients, what would you tell me to prepare for that journey home with baby, with, like you said, hopefully your support person? Like, what does that typically look like? What can we expect?
So after a vaginal delivery, patients will typically stay 2 nights in the hospital. If it's a C-section, it's usually 3 nights just to, make sure that mom is comfortable walking, eating, pain is controlled with oral medication, questions are answered, their bleeding's not too severe, all things that once you're cleared that you're able to go home. Now, if there's complications, whether it be with mom or baby, you might opt to stay in the hospital a little bit longer, and that's always a possibility, but it's usually 2 to 3 nights. Once you go home, it feels like a different world. So some people have, a nursery that they've been crafting for months at a time to make sure it's this perfect home for their baby. And a lot of times the baby doesn't spend much time in their nursery right away because they're usually at your bedside. It's a lot of contact naps. So babies like to sleep a lot. They're growing, everything's changing. They eat a lot, they sleep a lot. And some crying in between because that's the only thing they have to communicate.
Right.
So that's most of, the first couple days.
And people describe it as a haze.
It is. It is. You're just going from one moment to the next trying to figure out who your baby is and what they need and learning their cues and how do I know if this cry means they're hungry? How do I know if this cry means they're wet and need to be changed? And after, even a couple hours to a couple of days, moms start to hone in on, no, that's a hungry cry. That's a wet cry. That's a I'm cold cry. So it's really interesting how you bond and get to know that baby so well.
I love that. I just remember just a personal anecdote with my niece who will be 2 in December. Her little eyebrows get red right before she cries. And when she's tired, she tugs her ear. And it's like this special language that her mother, my sister, learned very early on. So you can almost kind of predict what's going to happen. In terms of mom healing, I know it can be hard, I think, for people who might be, I'm guessing you're probably type A like myself, you're a doctor, to try to adhere to a certain timeline for healing physically and maybe even emotionally. Any advice you could offer to first-time moms?
Yes. The best advice is that there is no timeline. There are goals, and there's an old timeline that people used to say, oh, by 6 weeks, you're fine. By 6 weeks, you should be feeling great. You should be ready to exercise, and that's usually not the case. There, of course, are a couple women who are super moms, and at 6 weeks, they do feel great and they want to get back into everything, and that's fantastic, but I would not say that's the norm. I don't think most women's bodies, whether they've had a vaginal delivery or a C-section, are ready for much at 6 weeks other than caring for themselves and caring for their baby. It's a very outdated time frame.
It's so helpful to hear, though. It's nice.
So I feel like women get upset or down on themselves when they reach that 6 week point and they say, well, I'm at 6 weeks. Why don't I feel better? And their hormones are still changing. Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot of hormonal changes going on. Physically, there's still a lot of healing that has to happen. Whether you've had a vaginal delivery, maybe you have stitches, maybe the stitches haven't all dissolved yet, or you still feel sore. Maybe you still have bleeding. Bleeding can last for up to 12 weeks. Some people think it should be gone by 6, but some people have up to 12 weeks. That's a long time. If you've had a C-section, maybe you still feel really sore. Your abdominal muscles still haven't come back together. That can take months. And then just the emotional changes. There's a lot that goes on that people don't usually talk about.
And you have a new roommate.
It's this whole new person to take care of.
Person in your house.
Yes, who's very demanding usually.
They can't be reasoned with.
No, they
not
do not
at that age. But that's really helpful because I think that self-empathy is probably got to be something that can only help your healing. And it's just so encouraging to hear from a professional like yourself that 6 week timeline is nothing that we should hold ourselves to. Because I'm sure you've been on social media and just even the regular media, there can be a lot of pressure on new moms. Look at this celebrity.
So much pressure to bounce back. And I hate that term. It should be,
a term should be outlawed.
It should, because there is no bounce back. Your body will never be the same, but it can be different and it could be better. There's no saying that, it will never be the same because now it's all downhill from here. You can get back to where you were and you can progress. You can get stronger. You can get more fit. You can get back to everything, but just in enough time. But 6 weeks is usually not enough time to do anything other than learn about your baby, still care for your body, and be going through all these emotional changes.
So what I'm really feeling from here is just, you have to take it at your own pace, and probably something that could hinder your emotional well-being would be trying to adhere to a strict timeline. One of the things that I've not broached yet in my journey and learning is just about breastfeeding. I think there's also, when we talk about societal pressures, I think breastfeeding is something that we all hear a lot about and have a lot of opinions and a lot of noise about. But you being a physician, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about kind of, when does it start? Does it start in the hospital? And does every woman's journey I know you'll say probably yes, but does everyone's journey look a little different when it comes to feeding their baby?
Absolutely, yes. Everybody's journey is different. And breastfeeding is something that I'm very passionate about. I've breastfed both my children and I had a hard time with it. And I tell people that because there's this assumption that it's natural and it therefore should be easy. And if you're not getting it right away, there's something wrong with you or the baby. And that's just not true. It's difficult, and it's something that a mom has to learn. It's something that the baby has to learn, so there's a lot going on that hopefully every hospital has a lactation consultant. But that lactation consultant is probably seeing you maybe 12 hours after birth, and your body's still healing and your emotions are, running wild, and you've got so much going on. Maybe you've got visitors coming in because they want to meet the baby. And then you get home and you think, well, now what do I do?
Right.
So they think the best thing that people can do is talk to a lactation consultant that comes to their home. A lot of insurances will cover this, so it's great to look online and see who's in your area. But just to have somebody look at your anatomy, because everyone's anatomy is different, look at the baby's oral anatomy, because all of theirs are different too, and then work with you and the baby to figure out, what do you need to do to latch better? How can we get a pain-free latch? And what can we do to help you get more milk? Sometimes there's medical conditions that prevent people from having adequate milk supply. We have to address those. Sometimes it's a latch issue that maybe just a little bit of positioning can help with. Maybe it's a pain issue and we have to deal with that. But I think, starting with a good lactation consultant that can help you in whatever your journey looks like is really important. If you plan on pumping or exclusively pumping or maybe doing 50-50, they'll evaluate your flange size. Most women are not using the right flange size. The ones that usually come in the packages, they'll give you usually a small and a large.
It's like not one
They
size
usually
fits all.
don't fit anybody.
I didn't know this. That's so
Yes.
good to know.
So some companies will give you like a little measurement tool that you can measure the areola and see what size you should be using. And that alone can make all the difference with milk supply. And just having somebody look at it and say, yeah, this isn't the right size for you. Let's try this. That might be the only difference you need. But unless you're evaluated or you try to measure, you just won't know.
It's not going to fit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. That's great advice. Thank you. I should be taking notes. Any nutrition tips for moms who are breastfeeding?
Absolutely. So getting enough protein is really crucial for making milk. Also, continuing your prenatal vitamin. You can take a prenatal, you can take a postnatal, but some kind of multivitamin just to make sure you're also getting enough calcium and vitamin D. That's really important for breastfeeding.
Great. Oh, that's so good to know. Thank you. And thank you for it's so nice to hear your advice about breastfeeding. I felt it similar to our healing advice. Like it's going to look different for everybody. And maybe having a support system in place is key. Any other additional thoughts you'd like to add before we wrap today?
I think pregnancy is one of the most amazing things that somebody can go through, and it can be really difficult. But having a support person, whether it's a spouse, a family member, a friend who checks in on you, makes sure you're okay, sees what you need, and can help if you do start to feel, symptoms of postpartum depression or anything that makes you feel like you might need some assistance. I think having a support person can make all the difference.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Goodheart.
You're
That's
welcome.
really great advice. Dr. Goodheart, thank you again for joining us to bring light to these questions that often seem taboo sometimes for some new moms to talk about. So I really appreciate, and I know our viewers appreciate, you taking the time to join us for these final 2 episodes of the season. We have so much information on our website for new moms, so please visit the link below to get information on birthing classes, resources, and you can also schedule an appointment with Dr. Goodheart if you are expecting. I would like to thank all of our guests who have joined us this season in Beyond the Stethoscope. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever you stream podcasts to catch up on our past episodes and updates to our next season coming soon.